Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite NFL podcast show, Students of the Game. I'm Justin Dade here with Elijah Freeman. Week 11 in review, and as usual, we'll start this podcast off with our biggest wins of the week. Elijah Freeman, the floor is yours.
The floor is mine. Hello, Justin Dade. It is good to be with you. And you know why it's good to be with you? Because the Packers are back on track, baby. You know what? You're looking at your watch right now.
I'm counting how long it took for you to get into that
you know what? It didn't take long because it didn't take long for the Packers to reassert their control over the NFC North.
Who was panicking last week?
Me.
And who told you to stop
of Packers
panicking?
Nation. You.
Yep, you're right.
I will grant you that because I thought there was no way the Packers were going to be able to shut down Peterson, which they did completely. I thought there was no way that the running game would get back in gear after Lacey had looked so poor, but he did. And I thought that the Packers were not going to be able to get the kind of pressure on Bridgewater. Oh my goodness, 6 sacks of Teddy Bridgewater held the Vikings to really just that one touchdown and a couple of field goals. It managed to score 2 touchdowns, I should say. The 13 points were kind of confusing me, but they missed the extra point on one of them. So they found the end zone twice, but man, the Packers' defense looked about as good as it has all year, and the Packers' offense found the end zone again, which was nice, and Mason Crosby hit all 5 of his field goals. It was a feel-good day for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers still completed less than half of his passes, which is unusual for him to see, but Eddie Lacy, 22 carries, 100 yards, his best game of the season. Talk about a bounce back. And James Jones, in his hoodie, with his Cali swag, as he put it, trying to stay warm as a California boy up in Minnesota on a rather cold November afternoon. The hoodie worked apparently because he had 6 catches for 108 yards and a touchdown that was a thing of beauty. So the Packers, that is the biggest win of the week. Probably their biggest win of the season because off the 3-game schneid, they managed to get back on track and now looking towards Thursday Night Football, Thanksgiving edition, against the Bears to see if they can't go to 8-3 with back-to-back division wins. But it was a huge victory for the Packers. That's my biggest win of the week.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for this rivalry to get competitive again. I thought this game was going to be close. I still thought the Packers would win. But yeah, still waiting for this rivalry to become competitive. Teddy Bridgewater looked poor. They couldn't run the ball.
Well, he didn't get a lot of protection from his offensive line.
It was bad.
He got battered.
What are the 2 things that you need to win in the playoffs, remember?
I mean, you probably need to play defense and run the ball or something.
Exactly. You need to stop the run and you need to run the ball, and the Packers did both of those things. They're good formulas that they're going to need to keep around to be competitive in the playoffs, which they're a lock for basically at this point, even though you were questioning that last week as well.
Well, if they were going to lose to the Lions at home, I didn't know they could go on the road to the red-hot Vikings and completely blow the doors off them by 17 points.
But the Lions did beat a Raiders team, and, that wasn't expected either. So maybe that makes your loss feel any worse. Probably not, though.
No, not exactly.
Moving on, my biggest win of the week was not your Green Bay Packers. It was the Arizona Cardinals proving themselves once again.
Hard to argue with that.
This time on a big stage on Sunday night.
That's their second straight Sunday night game. I just realized that.
Unreal. I mean, they had to score 34 points to win. The defense conceded 31 to Cincinnati. And please, people, don't blame this loss on Andy Dalton. He gets too much flack for the losses he already gets. Please don't go there. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Don't go there. Carson Palmer, on the other hand, did turn it over twice, but overcame that with his 4 touchdown passes. Big game for J.J. Nelson. And that's the thing with this offense is because they have so many weapons in the passing game.
So many weapons.
I mean, Fitzgerald, John Brown, and Michael Floyd didn't even play. And now J.J. Nelson, I mean, I know of him, but a lot of people don't. So a big surprise there for people who don't know who he is. But, yeah, the third quarter they dominated with 3 touchdowns to take a really huge lead in this game. And kudos to the Bengals for coming back, but unable to get it done. Big win for the Cardinals and a statement win, I think, which is huge.
I mean, yeah, they did manage to get this victory at home, second straight Sunday Night Football victory for them, 8-2. I don't know that they're going to catch the Panthers, who are 2 games ahead of them, and the Panthers won in convincing fashion over the Redskins, but the Cardinals 8-2, like I said, another game up against the Packers. They still have to play the Packers, and they have to play the Vikings as well, who are both at 7-3 behind them. But this Cardinals team, the weapons on offense, Fitzgerald, Nelson, John Brown, Jaron Brown. You can run the ball with either Chris Johnson or David Johnson or Andre Ellington. You can throw to Daniel Fells, who caught a touchdown pass. It's pick your poison.
Bruce Arians has done a great job.
Remarkable offense in Arizona.
Bruce Arians done a great job.
That was just a fun game to watch. It was a fun Sunday Night Football game.
Oh, it definitely was.
And the drive at the end, the Bengals went down and tied it up, but Carson Palmer was rifling a couple of passes there, got them down, and boom, kicked the field goal to win the game, 34-31. This Cardinals team is legit, and that was a big win.
Did you say the Cardinals play the Packers later?
They do.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that
Second
one.
to last game of the season in Arizona just after Christmas. Moving on here, another big win, though. This is my Houston Texans. And I'm going to say that my Houston Texans, I like them more than you do, I'm guessing.
Okay, well, then you'll give them to me later then.
Okay, but my Houston Texans, the team at hand, they beat the New York Jets, and these are two teams heading in opposite directions because the Jets were 4-1 and are now 5-5, and the Texans, I believe, were at one point 2-5, but they've won 3 straight, I believe.
Something like that.
And they've done it with 3 different quarterbacks. Now, T.J. Yates made the start in this one and didn't complete quite half of his passes, but the ones he did complete were pretty effective because they managed to score a couple touchdown passes to DeAndre Hopkins.
Who is literally the entire offense.
He is literally the entire offense. But you know what? It was enough offense to beat the Jets, who, like I said, are absolutely fading. But right now, the Houston Texans don't look now. They're tied with the Indianapolis Colts at 5-5. And I don't know who's going to win this AFC South, but the Texans have just as good a shot as anybody, I figure.
Right.
And they managed to get this win at home, even though they were on their third quarterback, essentially. It wasn't supposed to be T.J. Yates. They've gone back and forth kind of between Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, who's not even with the team anymore.
He might not get a job anywhere ever. Maybe not even McDonald's. They don't want him showing up late for that either.
So, but T.J. Yates wasn't late. Not late for Yates, we'll call him. But he managed to get the job done, and I was just kind of impressed because the defense, which had been kind of weirdly off for the Houston Texans, came back because they really shut down the running game of Chris Ivory, forced Ryan Fitzpatrick into a couple of turnovers, I believe it was, and J.J. Watt got going. We'll just touch on him later, but let's just say J.J. Watt had a J.J. Watt-style game where he wrecked the
And the weird
New York
part
Jets
is we're starting to
offense.
expect performances like these. We don't really talk about them. That's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit later. Because we expect so much out of him because he is the best defensive player in football.
He looked like it on Sunday.
But yeah, the funny thing too, T.J. Yates, if you forgot, was on the Falcons roster at the beginning of the season. And we got rid of him because he was literally garbage. But just in typical Falcons fashion, when we get rid of players, they go somewhere and have success, which doesn't surprise me.
Justin is a little bit upset about the Falcons. Big losses coming. Do you want to go to the Falcons now? Where do you want to head now?
No, I want to talk about the Seattle Seahawks first.
Okay, a team that did play well on Sunday.
Yes, I mean, in a game at home against the pitiful 49ers, I mean, we expected a win, but this is big for the playoff push, especially with the Falcons losing and the Rams also losing. So, I mean, pretty big week for Seattle. I'm not counting them out of this wild card yet at all. I mean, obviously we don't think they're going to catch the Cardinals, but I like them right now for my wild card number 2 with the Falcons falling out. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. But Russell Wilson, these stats, 24 for 29. When was the last time? I bet Russell's never done that, probably.
24 for 29, 260 yards,
3 touchdowns,
3 TD
no
passes.
turnovers. And Thomas Rawls had the game of his life. But yeah, holy cow, the San Francisco 49ers are a really bad football team.
They are a really bad football team, but you know what? The Seattle Seahawks are a team that can't seem to string together wins necessarily so much. It's just that they lose a game and we're like, oh boy, is it time to bury them? And then they win the next week and you're like, okay, never mind. That's right. This team still can do some things.
And I've gone back. I'll be the first time guilty of going back and forth.
Oh,
in
me
Seattle.
too. Although the thing is, I still think Tyler Lockett had a big game in this one too. He caught, I believe, 2 of those touchdown passes. The rookie, who I hadn't heard a lot from, I was kind of surprised. I sort of forgot about him, but he was dynamic in the preseason and in the first couple of games. Was making some plays, but they got him involved. They got Rawls involved. Wilson was as accurate as he's probably ever been, and this team, I think, don't count them out. 5-5. They're not going to win the division, but they're going to be the wild card team nobody really wants to play, and they did get a pretty big win to get to 500.
Next 2 games for the Seahawks will be at home against the Steelers. That'll be a really important game. Then they travel to Minnesota. These 2 games are going to be tough. I think if Seattle can win at least one of those and then sweep the 3 after that with the Ravens, Browns, and Rams.
Ooh, those are some not so good teams in their way.
So let's see what they're 5-5 now, right? 6-6. 9-6. I mean, looking at 9-6.
They could get to 10-6 if the Cardinals
they could beat the Cardinals at home. If maybe they rest some players, but I wouldn't see them doing that in a big game. But yeah, it could come down to the last game of the season for the Seahawks as they travel to Arizona. Obviously, that's no easy task at all. We got one more team with a big win this week. Who you got?
That is the Kansas City Chiefs, and this was truly
Dominating
the big
fashion.
win. I think this was the biggest margin of victory of anybody, and that includes the Panthers' 28-point victory against Washington. How about 33-3 over your division rival San Diego Chargers? And it's just really sad right now for the Chargers, but that doesn't take anything away from what the Chiefs did, because even though they were down to not even Charkandrick West anymore, we're talking Spencer Ware with the 11 carries and 96 yards and a touchdown.
Do you know where he went to college?
Where did he go to college, Justin?
LSU, actually.
LSU, okay.
And I believe he played behind Jeremy Hill, possibly.
Okay.
I think, but don't quote me on
There's
that.
been some good LSU running backs that have come out at various different points.
Yeah, Ware's in his second season, and Hill is too, right?
Yes.
So we're good there.
Well, in any case, I'd never heard of him before, but he had an
neither did
effective game, and they managed to get that Alex Smith just doing his Alex Smith kind of a thing where he just is very, very efficient, doesn't turn the ball over. I saw a stat. Alex Smith hasn't thrown a pick since week 3 against the Packers. Do you remember that game?
Solid, steady.
That's like that's like 2 months ago, and he hasn't thrown an interception.
If you want the epitome of an average quarterback, you will see a face of Alex Smith.
Well, I don't know if 20 for 25 sounds too average. I
You
mean, he had his way.
Elijah, he's average, man.
He is average, but he is exactly what the Chiefs need, because all of a sudden, do you realize the Chiefs have won 4 straight games?
Oh, I do realize, and that's why we're going to talk about the Chiefs later and in their resurgence. But Cairo Santos has been a fantastic kicker this year too for them.
I don't like the Chiefs are just putting these. So they're playing the Chargers, who have kind of just folded up the season, and
Maybe we should have another moment of silence for Philip Rivers.
We may. Can we also have a moment of silence for the fact that LaDainian Tomlinson had his number retired? One of the greats there ever was at the running back position. Had his number retired and had to go see this. Terrible, terrible performance.
We'll be back with you guys in a moment. And thanks for coming back to us now. We had that moment of silence there for Rivers and LT. But really,
it's not good. And
Chargers are 2-8 and
have losers of 6 straight.
Are going to be looking at the draft boards here pretty soon.
I think it might be time to figure out who they're going to be looking for in April more so than in November/December. Moving on to big losses. Actually, we're going to stay in the AFC West where we just talked about Chiefs and Chargers. What about the Oakland Raiders, Justin?
Your Oakland Raiders. What the heck happened?
I might start disowning this Oakland Raiders team.
Derek Carr had 169 yards in this game.
That's not good.
And Amari Cooper had 1 catch. For 4 yards.
Has Amari Cooper slowed down or even disappeared in some of these? They've lost 3 straight games. I don't think he's done a whole lot in those 3 straight games.
Michael Crabtree was targeted 11 times compared to Cooper's 4. You know why? Cooper dropped 2 of those targets.
Yeah.
So
he might be hitting a little bit of that rookie wall, kind of like my boy Todd Gurley, who had kind of a down game. But
there's no reason why the Raiders should have lost this game at all, and it really kind of buries what slim chances they had at a playoff spot. I mean, they didn't really have a real chance. But
well, they were 4-3.
I know that's
and then
what I'm
4-4, and then 4-5, and now 4-6.
They fell apart.
They actually, I take it back. Amari Cooper actually had just come off a game with 5 catches for 79. That 7 catches for 88 yards against the Steelers. So he had this is his first really bad game of the season. 1 catch, 4 yards. That's really, really bad. But I think they did even have the lead in this game, right? It was 16-13. They had kind of been shut out for most of the first half, but came back in the third quarter to score 13 points and take the lead 13-9. But in the fourth quarter,
Matthew Stafford, 80-yard drive, I believe.
Matthew Stafford managed to get it done, and Stafford, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but he did have a rushing touchdown in this game. Yeah, Derek Carr, 169 yards passing is not going to get it done, really, and neither is Latavius Murray's 13 carries for 28 yards.
Yeah, dthat's what really hurt him in this game. They didn't have a run game at all.
So that's not good from the Oakland Raiders at 4-6. But speaking of teams that are 4-6, the Philadelphia Eagles are just really, really sad at this point.
It's fading fast.
The Eagles got beat up by 28 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are surging. And we will talk about some of their guys and top performers, because the reason why there's so many top performers for the Bucs in that list is because they made the Eagles look silly.
Probably one of the worst defensive performances of the season, if you ask me, letting a rookie quarterback throw 5 touchdowns on you, 4 of those in the first half. That's all I have to say.
Well, but their offense wasn't any good either. I know Mark Sanchez isn't the preferred starter in Philadelphia, but you know what? When
DeMarco Murray didn't play very well either. He had a fumble as well.
I've seen people after this game criticizing Murray's effort, like he wasn't even really trying in this game. That maybe they think that guys are just packing it in. Although Murray did have almost 5 yards to carry, but I think
the fumble, yeah, really.
He fumbled the ball, And the turnovers were prodigious for Mark Sanchez, who threw 3 INTs. Not exactly a great showing in Sanchez's first start of the season for the injured Bradford.
I'm going to throw in a little tidbit here that I didn't put in the script. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
So I did watch some film. I'm getting ready for the start looking at some prospects for the NFL draft. And
Justin, it's not even December yet.
It's not even December.
I mean, maybe the Chargers are looking at it.
Yeah,
but,
hashtag it's never too early, Elijah Freeman. The NFL draft is one of my favorite things. But the Philadelphia Eagles really need a quarterback. And if there's a name that you Eagle fans out there, if there are any Eagle fans listening, look up Paxton Lynch. He's the number 1 prospected quarterback right now. Out of Memphis. So take a look at him. Out of Memphis.
I didn't realize Memphis had a good football team.
Yes, they were ranked for a while. They might still be. But yeah, Paxton Lynch, quick feet, very athletic, and one of the best throwers I've seen on the run coming out of the draft in a while. So take a look at Paxton Lynch. Anyway, moving on. I'll throw it back to myself for another fading team.
Because you got to talk about your boys.
Yeah, I'm not going to disown them. I'll be a Falcons fan forever. Just because that's how I roll. But
right now, their losing streak feels like forever.
It's sad. It really is sad.
They had this one.
Oh, absolutely. We've had games before. This is typical Falcon football. In the second half, I'm starting to question Dan Quinn's leadership, and he's been preaching finish all season long. I haven't seen it. It's kind of garbage at this point. And I'm usually a defender of Matt Ryan. Not anymore. I'm sick of it, Matt. I'm really sick of it. I'm calling out Matt Ryan for the first time, I believe, in my Falcons fandom. And I believe it's awful. It's awful. We had this game. All of the Colts drove down, got a touchdown, and then they pinned us back on a punt at the 1-yard line. In the first play, Matt Ryan throws a pick six, never sees DeQuell Jackson over the middle of the field. If I would have been watching, I'm glad I wasn't, because I probably would have left the room. Because a pick six on your 1-yard line when you're leading, it's ridiculous. It's a joke. Matt Ryan is turning the ball over way too much, and 25 for 46 this week. Devontae Freeman had the concussion in the first half. Tevin Coleman came in and in typical Falcons rookie fashion did absolutely nothing.
Not quite 3 yards a carry. Yeah, not good.
Another rookie who's not doing anything, calling you out, Vic Beasley. I understand you're a rookie pass rusher, but yeah, you've done nothing all season. And the Falcons are fading fast. If you ask me, they have no shot at the playoffs anymore. I know we're still in the playoff picture right now. We have the Vikings next week. I don't give us any legitimate chance at that game. And the offense is the problem. I'll be straight up honest. The Falcons' defense, it's not great, but it's good enough with this should be just great offense that we just don't have.
They have all the pieces, though.
It's a joke. That's what's the most frustrating part.
Julio Jones is one of the best wideouts in the NFL.
That's the frustrating, and we've been able to run the ball. It's the turnovers. Like I said, this loss is 100% on number 2. 100%. That's all I have to say. Matt Ryan, you better pick it up because right now you're not worth that $100 million contract we gave you.
They were up 21-7 in this game in the third quarter and just kind of choked it away. Not exactly the performance you'd like to see, and that's why they get the big loss, perhaps the biggest loss.
Oh, Coleman also had a fumble in the second half as well. So
turnovers all over the place for the Falcons at home to lose this game to the Colts, who are playing Matt Hasselbeck, the 40-year-old QB.
I believe that is the third quarterback we've lost to this year that's either a backup or a rookie, which is also typical Falcons football.
So Matt Hasselbeck at 40 was kind of a top performer. It's not much of a transition, but we'll roll with it. Speaking of top performers, Justin, who do you got as far as this week's kind of MVP stars of the games that we had in Week 11?
Absolutely no better than Mr. Thomas Rawls in Seattle. Marshawn Lynch forced out of this game. He didn't play with the whatever kind of injury we have. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, 33 touches for the undrafted rookie. And it's just amazing to me that the Seahawks find these players that they draft either late or pick up afterward that nobody knows about, and they turn them into studs. If you watch Rawls, go watch his highlights. That one run he had on the sideline where he bowled over a Washington defender, or not Washington defender, excuse me.
San
Francisco defender. It was awesome. He runs with power. He finishes his runs every time, and Seattle fans, if you want a nickname, I would just go with Mini Beast Mode because he looked like one on Sunday. Definitely carried the Seahawks to victory. Impressive performance from Rawls. He had 255 total yards and 2 scores on those 33 touches. Elijah Freeman, another running back that went off.
Well, if you're going to say it doesn't get any better than Thomas Rawls, I mean, perhaps not, but if there is anyone that did better in terms of just rushing yards, it would be Doug Martin. And when you get 209 yards, as Thomas Rawls did rushing, usually that's the top number on the board for the week, but Doug Martin, 235 yards rushing on 27 carries for an 8.7 yards a carry. He was ripping off. I saw he had a 59-yard run. He had an 84-yard run.
Yeah, 84, and he got knocked down at the 1-yard line.
So maybe he doesn't have the speed to finish off runs all the way to the end zone, but the muscle hamster has actually, he is the second leading rusher in the NFL this year, about 60 yards behind Adrian Peterson. And he did quite a bit of catching up with Peterson's slow day and his huge day. But yeah, Doug Martin, second leading rusher in the NFL.
Resurging his career after a couple down years.
He had a couple years where it just disappeared. He had some injuries the last couple years, but he is regaining that form he had as a rookie where he was just absolutely huge. And the Buccaneers, like we said, completely smashed the Eagles, and Martin was a huge reason why.
5-5 for Tampa Bay. I'm pretty impressed.
5-5. Speaking of the NFC South, Justin, who is that QB that threw 5 TD passes in the NFC South? I mean,
there are actually two of them.
There were two of them now that I think about.
I want to just talk about Cam Newton a little bit just because I'm usually one of his bigger critics. It might have to do with the fact that he's in my division. But I want to give all of the mad props to Cam Newton for this game because he actually excelled as a pocket passer. 5 touchdowns, 4 of those came in the red zone, and 3 of them came off play-action pass as Washington expecting the run. But yeah, I mean, 21-34 isn't the greatest completion percentage, but those 5 touchdowns, he's never had more than 3 in a game in his career. So 5, obviously pretty special for Cam. And I believe after every touchdown he gave a ball to a kid or something like that.
He does, yeah, that is pretty cool.
I'm not sure if that stuff is an act or if he actually truly is like that, but I really hope he is. And yeah, spreading the ball around. Let's see, looks like
I think it was to 5 different receivers that caught touchdown passes.
8. He completed 8 passes to 8 different guys, but yeah, also 5 different guys on the touchdowns. And good game from Devin Funchess.
And they're still 10-0, and they kind of made this one over.
A dominant 10-0 for Carolina. I mean, I think the Falcons might have a chance against them just because it's a division game, and anything can happen in the NFC South in division games. But obviously, on paper, not much of a chance for us. But yeah, huge game for Newton, and he only ran 4 times. Which is huge. It is his lowest run total of the season, which just shows you how much he wanted to emphasize throwing the ball, which I appreciate.
That could also be a thing of taking what the defense gives him if the Redskins were kind of stacking up to, or maybe spy on him to keep him from running too much or keep him in the pocket. He's like, all right then, and fired darts all afternoon for touchdowns, and they rolled, just straight rolled.
It also helps to have the plethora of red zone weapons that he has with Olsen and Funchess and Jonathan Stewart.
Some big guys,
yeah,
for sure. Speaking of big guys, I want to talk about the guy who I think is the very best wide receiver in the NFL. My boy DeAndre Hopkins, who has managed to, right now he is 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards.
So he's the best receiver in football then.
But you know why? He has had to deal with 3 different mediocre at best starting quarterbacks. Oh
yeah, if we're talking about MVPs for wide receivers, no doubt Hopkins,
he does everything.
Literally their offense.
He has 9 touchdowns on this season, which is more than either of the guys who are ahead of him in yards in terms of Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. So this man finds the end zone, as he did twice in this game over against the Jets. Torched Revis on the longest touchdown Revis has given up since 2009.
Long time ago.
So, a 61-yard bomb that TJ Yates got in the ball, and then Revis goes out of the game, and they're like, okay, we'll pick on his backup then, and they got another touchdown. So 5 for 118, and those 2 scores. DeAndre Hopkins is a complete beast, and he is not getting nearly enough credit trying to catch passes from Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer, or TJ Yates. I don't think any of those guys are ideal starters in the NFL.
Yeah,
Hopkins just makes it happen.
And I'll be the first to say that I didn't think Hopkins could be at number 1 after what we saw in years prior with him. Is he 3rd or 2nd year? I'm trying to remember. 3rd.
He's a 3rd-year guy.
So 2 years prior, he didn't really look like a number 1 threat, but this year I praise him for the great things he's done in the offseason to get ready for this year because he knew he'd be the number 1 without Andre.
Yeah, he's getting targeted like every other pass, which they might as well because they don't have anyone else to go to, and he's doing it anyways.
Texans need a lot of help on offense outside of him, though, that's for sure. They could use just about anything, let's be honest, other than him to help them out a little bit, but they're in good spot there with winning those 3 games in a row now?
I think it's 3 straight.
Okay.
If you want one more for me before we get to your defensive guys that you love to talk about so much.
Would you say plural? Was that plural?
There are two guys we're going to talk about on defense.
Go,
but before we do that, Carson Palmer, we kind of hinted at it before. He did not start off that game against Cincinnati very well. Threw 2 interceptions in his first 5 passes.
Yep.
But things got a little bit better from there because Carson Palmer wound up finishing the day 20 of 31, 317 yards, and 4 TD passes that he was firing all over the place. This Cardinals offense is fun to watch, and it all starts with Carson Palmer, who is at 35, going on 36, playing probably the best football of his career. He has 27 TD passes. That leads the whole NFL. More than Brady, more than Rodgers, more than Breeze, more than anybody. It's Carson Palmer, and he's... Pick your poison, like I said, but I think it starts with Palmer and his spectacular play from the pocket.
It's unfortunate for me, because we have the years that Newton and Brady have had, but I wish Palmer had a shot at the MVP. I mean, I don't think he does, but I think he deserves a look at it. He's been phenomenal this year, and you can only be happy for the guy. I mean, Palmer's one of those guys you can't really cheer against with all the injuries he's had to deal with in his life. Just a great year from Palmer, and I hope he's
healthy this year, and it's leading to beautiful things to watch from the Cardinals offense. It's maybe the most fun offense, honestly, to watch in the NFL with all the guys that Palmer can zing the ball at.
Oh, the Cardinals are a fun team to watch, and if the Falcons miss the playoffs, like I think they probably will, I might just
bandwagon the Cardinals.
I'd be happy to see them do well. Is what I mean to say. I'm not going to bandwagon.
So your defensive guys, this is kind of like a staple here. We usually just have one, but there were 2 efforts too good to ignore in the week 11 of the NFL season.
I mean, honestly, I'd love to have at least 5 or 10.
So much defense.
The defensive guys don't get enough credit in this league, especially with how the rules are these days.
But who's excelling despite that?
Two big weeks this week. I'll start with Levante David. A lower tackle mark than what he usually picks up. 6 tackles, but he made up for it.
He was busy doing some other stuff.
In the playmaking department with 2 interceptions, returning one of those for a touchdown, and the Bucs just absolute rout of Philadelphia.
He's so underrated.
And this is another one of these great players that nobody hears of because he plays on the other side of the ball. If you've never heard of Levante David, he's one of the best linebackers in football, and he has been for years now. And if it wasn't for Luke Kuechly, maybe the best in the league completely. But yeah, great week for Levante David doing it in the playmaking department. And my other guy, we're going to talk about the best defensive player in football, as I suggested earlier in the show.
That's a guy who does get the recognition.
J.J. Watt. Obviously, everybody knows who he is. And we're just starting to expect great production from him. But this game, 8 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 for loss.
That's 5 negative plays. He set the Jets back quite a few yards in the course of his performance in this game.
It's just a great game from Watt. And he does this every week. And if you haven't watched the E60 on J.J. Watt, it was phenomenal, by the way. It goes into dealing with the passing away of his grandpa, or his father, excuse me, or grandpa, one of the two, I don't remember. Yeah, it's a really good film. It shows how hard he works. I doubt there's a harder worker than Watt in the league.
That's very possible.
And with this performance, too, he now takes the lead over in sacks in the season, as Chandler Jones didn't get any tonight, as this is coming on a Monday, and the Patriots win. Chandler Jones did not record a sack in that game, so Watt now leads by a full sack with 11.5.
And people are saying he's having a down year.
It's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, I mean, maybe he won't get 20 and a half like last year, but I bet he's probably up at 17, 18, 19 sacks again.
And now that Houston keeps winning, now he's got a little added more incentive to get after the quarterback. At least they're winning games finally.
And maybe having leads in those games so he can tee off on, in this case, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and he just ruined that Jets offense and is getting rolling just like kind of in years past. J.J. Watt's as good as it gets. So that's our top performers segment, and we move on now to looking at some NFL news. If you've got a couple of deals, not deals I should say, but a couple of injuries rather that happened in Week 11. It's kind of just the way it is. The NFL is a league of attrition, and we lost a couple of good ones to concussions. That the head injury is always kind of a scary proposition that happens there. So who's maybe not going to play? It's hard to say at this point early in the week, obviously, but who had their bell rung this week and is questionable perhaps for playing this Sunday?
Yeah, we got Revis, who got hurt for the Jets. He missed. When did he exit that game?
I think it was maybe the third quarter or something like that.
So yeah, the Jets are going to need him if they want to ever turn this season around. Another player that they're going to need, the Falcons are going to need Devontae Freeman to turn their season around. when he left that game. He had 3 carries for 44 yards before he left.
Had the big run.
I guarantee you that game would have been different if Freeman would have played. Freeman came out afterwards, and he really wished he could have been in there, and he's already doing well on rehab. I expect Freeman to be out there next week in a game where the Falcons probably won't win, but I've had enough depressing statements about the Falcons.
If you want to talk depressing, though, I think so the Ravens managed to get the win, but that's probably one of the more depressing wins you can have. If you win a game, but your starting running back breaks his arm, and your starting quarterback, Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP in the past, Joe Flacco, tears his knee. But managed to stay in the game.
I was surprised they won this game when I heard about. I mean, I knew it was a close game, and with the injuries, I just assumed that they were going to end up falling to the Rams. But I was surprised they won. But yeah, it's got to be one of the less exciting
talk about
wins.
Bittersweet. Probably more bitter than sweet when you. I mean, Joe Flacco. I think he at times just kind of plays like Joe Average Flacco, but really like he can make it happen. He has in the past, and even though the stats won't show it all that great of a performance on the season, too many turnovers, and they haven't won the games. But that's not all really Flacco's fault. I think it's the defense hasn't managed to seem to get the stops.
The offense doesn't have any talent right now. Steve Smith is out.
The injuries, yes. When Steve Smith got hurt, that was huge. Brashad Perriman never actually even played
a snap
because of injuries as well.
Justin Forsett's over 30, has his broken arm. Who knows if they'll be able to count on him next year. I mean, they drafted Buck Allen in the 4th round, but he's only a complimentary type back. I think they'll be fine at tight end when Pitta comes back, and they drafted
Max Williams has made some nice plays.
But yeah, they need some wide receivers in the worst way.
And they're going to have to finish out this very, very disappointing down season, the first kind of that John Harbaugh era. And who knows about draft position or something like that. Matt Schaub will take over as a starter in Flacco's absence. And Flacco, I don't even think has missed a game unless they sat him to kind of end of the season, week 17, just resting your players. I think that might be the only game he's missed in his now 8-year career.
Yeah, if the Ravens fall back a couple or win a couple games, maybe fall back a couple draft spots to more around like the 10 or so range, Laquan Treadwell would be a wide receiver for them to look for in the draft.
Justin already getting to draft stuff. There's still other news stuff to go on.
I am sorry. I'm excited, all right.
There's a couple other quarterback notes I think we need to make note of. I talked about T.J. Yates and his performance, giving him a lot of credit, but Yates is going to cede the starting job back to Brian Hoyer for the Houston Texans. Yates had very serviceable in Hoyer's absence, finishing out one game and starting the next one to get them the W, but Brian Hoyer will be back as the starter for the Houston Texans against the New Orleans Saints, who are coming off a bye week after having faded very poorly and looked terrible on defense last we saw them. So maybe Hoyer is going to look for Hopkins early and often and try to get a win for the rolling Houston Texans. But Hoyer coming back after an injury. Also, speaking of quarterbacks who are going to take advantage of things, Justin's all excited. He's just like throwing pens at me now. Why are you so excited about quarterback news? What is there someone you want to talk about?
I love this Brock Osweiler kid. I really do.
The Wizard of Osweiler.
I mean, I like I said, I don't have a whole lot to base this off of, but I just like the kid. He's tall, he's lengthy, he's
6'8".
He's got a big arm. I just like players like that. I mean, it's just I just got bored with all the Peyton Manning checkdowns and duck throws that I just was looking forward to see what Osweiler could do, and he played a great game. He really did play a great game, and a big in the win for Denver, and I think it was a great choice by Fox, or by Kubiak, excuse me, to have him play this week. Osweiler will be starting. That's the news for Denver next week. And I would like to see
he's got a game against the Patriots, so we'll see.
That's going to be really tough.
Beating the Bears is one thing. Beating the Patriots, if they could do it, would be another. But Osweiler, 20-27, threw for over 250 yards, got 2 touchdown passes, and the most important thing, and Manning had been doing this way too often all season long, even though it didn't hurt them so much, and won most of the game. Osweiler did not turn the ball over.
Yeah, that
was huge.
In his first start, really. So, yeah, I just like this Osweiler kid, and I wish the best of him against New England. I don't expect him to pull out the W, but it would be nice to see him play, a little decently, I would hope. And then we'll see what happens with Osweiler and Manning for the rest of the season. Kubiak has stated and affirmed that Peyton Manning is their starting quarterback when healthy, but if Osweiler plays well,
if he plays well, I mean, like, why not just ride the hot hand? And he offers more, I think, to the offense at this point in terms of mobility, arm strength. Probably doesn't know quite as much, but can get it more done physically. I think that's the huge thing. So yeah, it's hard to exactly say where that debate goes. But Manning needs to get healthy to even make this into a debate, and he's not right now. So just roll with Osweiler, and he had a very auspicious start.
We did have one notable release over the last few days. The Jets got rid of Quentin Coples, the pass rusher they drafted in the first round in 2012. A little more draft news there, a little bit. Drafted in the first round in 2012.
We're talking a lot of draft stuff here.
He's been extremely disappointing, and he's shown flashes. He's shown a little bit here and there, but he was never able to put it all together, and I think the Jets were just finally sick of it, especially for Todd Bowles, who doesn't have a very long leash. He'd come out and spoken about Devin Smith and their rookie wide receiver and how upset he's been with him recently. But yeah, they're tired of him, and he hasn't been picked up yet, but maybe he might be. We'll just have to wait and see. But he just hasn't done much. Do you have the official stats, Elijah?
Well, no, I know he had 16 and a half sacks on his career. I was just going to point out the fact that what might irk the Jets as well is that 5 picks later in that draft, Chandler Jones was taken by the Patriots in the division rival, who has 34 career sacks.
The AFC East, without a doubt, would be a little bit different
if they had picked a different pass rusher.
But it's easy to say that now.
It is definitely easy to say that, but 3.5 years into his career, he'll go somewhere else, and I'm sure that someone else will pick him up. He hadn't been absolute garbage. It's just this season had not played.
And I think it's also an issue. They don't know what position he should he play, a down DL 4-3 defensive end, or should he play an outside linebacker in a 3-4? Nobody really knows.
Kind of a tweener.
But I really hope somebody gives him a shot, because I think he might be able to produce. Who knows? But this is you would think like Seattle would pick them up or something, or the Patriots, and they turn him into a stud, because it seems like that always happens.
It's just kind of how things work. One last little bit of news: Marshawn Lynch has a sports hernia, and his season could actually be over. Lynch, just kind of all of a sudden this season, the injuries, the age, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he's missed some games, and even the games he has been in, Thomas Rawls has had 2 monster games on the season, but Lynch is very much hurt and may not play again this season. Got to, kind of looking into maybe surgery or something like that.
And it also might bring up retirement, too. We've talked about Lynch retiring before. If he does indeed miss the rest of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if Lynch walked away. He's the type of player that might consider to do something.
You never
like
know
that.
what Marshawn Lynch is going to do. But it'd be unfortunate if this is the end that we see of beast mode. It's hard to say. It's probably way too early for that sort of talk now. But we're moving on from our news segment to a kind of discussion thing. We had talked about the Chiefs before, and I cannot figure out how the Chiefs managed to do this, because when Jamal Charles went down with a knee injury against the Bears, I thought, okay, the Chiefs are 1-5. They are absolutely done. They're going to be a contender for the top pick. And all of a sudden, the Chiefs are 5-5. They're riding a 4-game winning streak. They're starting Spencer Ware, I guess, this next week at running back, quite possibly, since Charcandrick West got hurt. Alex Smith is nothing special, but yet they're beating the Chargers. It's the Chargers, yeah, true, but by 30, and they're one of the hottest teams in the league. Where is this coming from?
Well, I did see in the stats, and they're 4th in the league in rush defense, which is obviously good news. Dontari Poe's had a big year, and he actually scored a touchdown. He scored a
rushing touchdown. Apparently the heaviest player to ever score a touchdown.
That's easily the best record of all time, if you ask me.
346 pounds of 1-yard touchdown run.
But here, let's take a look. In the Chiefs have not given up more than 20 points since Week 4. This week, they only gave 3 to the Chargers, 13 to Denver the week prior. 2 weeks earlier, before the bye, gave up 10 to Detroit, then 13 to Pittsburgh, and then 16 to Minnesota, 18 to the Bears. Those last 2 they ended up losing, but the defense wasn't the reason. Might have something to do with the return of Eric Berry, which is one of the greatest stories of the season so far, and his ability to fight cancer, which is just great that he'd been able to come back and play. But obviously, those pass rushers between Ali and Houston are great.
Yeah, Ali got 2 sacks, I believe it was, in this game.
That defense is going to have to continue to carry this team, because the Chiefs are lacking playmakers.
But they have enough playmakers to get it done and score some points.
Yeah, Travis Kelce's been pretty quiet the last few weeks, I've noticed, on my fantasy team, which I'm not too proud about, but I'm sure they'll fix that soon, probably.
If you're disappointed in your actual team, the Falcons, and your fantasy team. But two guys you shouldn't be disappointed in, and these are probably the top two contenders for MVP. Is it too simplistic to just say that, the two quarterbacks of the undefeated teams are kind of the top two candidates
Right.
for MVP? But Brady really has been spectacular. And all of a sudden, Newton, with this 5-touchdown pass game that he had, is putting up the stats as well. So if you want to pick an MVP, Newton, Brady, I think we could throw Carson Palmer in there just as
We'd
easily.
like to, but I just don't think
I don't know that the traction will
realistic.
start. But really, it probably should. But Newton, Brady, obviously the old established guy who's still got it, or the guy who's kind of young, up and coming, only in his 5th season. So who would you pick between those two right now?
Well, yeah, I just wanted. This is going to be, pretty much the only bigger part of our discussion this week, just because I want to talk about this just a bit, and we haven't asked each other who our choices were, and I'm kind of hoping that we picked different players just to see what happens. So on the count of 3, I'm going to count down from 3 to 0, and when it hits 0, you tell me who you think deserves to be the NFL MVP right now, and I will say mine.
All right, okay.
Okay?
Let's
It's
do
a
this.
fun little game here on Students of the Game.
I'm trying to figure out how you're going to play this, so I'm almost going to play maybe the opposite way or something. I don't know.
No, it doesn't matter about what I think. You should
Just
pick
go
who
for it?
you
Okay,
think deserves the MVP.
here we go.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Brady.
Okay, you know
All
what?
right.
Fine. Actually, since you said Brady, I'm going to be devil's advocate here. Even though I think the answer is Brady, I'm going to find you Cam Newton. Because look, Cam Newton can do it with his arm and his legs.
I think everyone knew that.
Okay, but way much more so than Tom Brady, who never really could do it, but obviously not now especially. Cam's got 20 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions. He also has, and you can't discount this, the 382 yards rushing and 6 rushing touchdowns. So if you combine the amount of times Cam Newton has been scoring essentially, either throwing it or running it, that's 26 total touchdowns. And you know who that's more than? Tom Brady. I think that might actually be a false statement.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you sure?
Close. Well, it's close, though, because what does Tom Brady have? He only had 1 touchdown pass in this game. It didn't look the greatest, actually, that we just saw this evening. Completed not even, just a little more than half of his passes and threw an interception, which is rare for him. So if I'm going to get,
you are right. You are
pull
correct.
up Brady stats here.
You are correct. He has 24. I don't know if that counted the last game or not, but
It doesn't appear to have. Okay, so it's 25. Oh, and he does have 2 rushing touchdowns. Never mind. So it's 27 to 26. So maybe what I'll just say is this: it's not as ridiculous as some people think to put Cam Newton up there for this sort of question.
how many turnovers does Newton have? Do you know?
Newton has thrown 9 interceptions.
That would be 3 times more than Mr. Brady.
No, but this hasn't updated yet. Brady has 4 INTs.
I actually do think it updated though.
Not at this NFL.com deal. Are we looking at the same thing?
It says recent games. Buffalo's down there, so.
Yeah, but it says that it's only through 9 games. Look, this hasn't updated. That's all I know for sure.
Okay, well, whatever.
So he has 24 to 4, or 25 to 4, I should say, as opposed to Newton's 20 to 9. So yes, Cam Newton has turned the ball over more, but you can throw in the rushing stats, and it's still impressive. The touchdowns are basically similar, and I think you could argue that while the Patriots have had their share of injuries with Edelman and Deion Lewis, Cam Newton has played the entire season without Kelvin Benjamin. He's forced to rely on Greg Olsen and a young. Well, okay, but you know who has a better tight end? Tom Brady, with Rob Gronkowski.
Tom Brady's a better tight end.
Tom Brady has a better tight end, has had more of his weapons for more of the season than Cam Newton. Look, what would Cam Newton's stats be if Benjamin was playing? At least a couple more touchdowns, you would figure.
Probably.
Probably more yards. He hasn't played the whole season.
I mean, I feel. Is that the end of your?
Rant over. Okay. I think it should go to Brady, as I said.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to make the argument that Cam Newton has had one heck of a season.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I think that you could make definitely an argument that Newton might deserve it. And I think that stems from just the leadership changes I've seen just over the last few weeks. I've called him out for being a bad leader before. And I think he's finally having the light bulb flash in his head that he is a quarterback and he needs to lead this team. And that happens off the field and during the game, encouraging your players, stuff like that. I love all that stuff. I don't think you can be an elite quarterback without being a leader. And I think Newton has done a much better job this season. I think, obviously, we can both agree that Tom Brady is a better pocket passer, without a doubt.
True.
And he's obviously a much better quarterback. But if you're talking about in terms of, like being important to the team, which most valuable player would entail.
Right.
I think you could argue that Newton is more important to the Panthers than Brady is to the Patriots, but again, that's a tough one to talk about too, because Brady has literally been the Patriots franchise his whole the last
15 years,
15 years, because he's been in the league for 16 and didn't start right away. So that's tough too, but I really feel like that if the season ended today, that they would give it to Brady, just because of all that he's done.
That would be absolutely fair.
But I mean, obviously, I wouldn't like to see Cam Newton win because he's in my division. But I could see that where he might deserve it, and I feel like the trend for Newton over Brady might be popular from some because they're sick and tired of Brady winning. But I personally am not sick and tired of seeing Brady winning.
It's still impressive to me when he does it. He's slowing down just a bit, though. I mean, and Newton is surging upwards, so maybe these two will wind up, their arcs will kind of meet, and who knows, we got 6 more weeks to go. If things are far from decided, I think Palmer should get more love, and who knows. But we're going to move on from that MVP talk to talk about guys who were the MVPs of this past week in terms of their performance on the field. Justin Dade, let's go to Fantasy Minute. Your studs and duds for Week 11 in the NFL. So who'd you have?
Thank you, Elijah. Yeah, this is my weekly article that I put out on fantasypros.com, one of the greatest resources around for fantasy football. Even during the season, too, we post a lot of good content. But yeah, Week 11, definitely my number one stud was Cam Newton when it came to 30 points with the 5 touchdown passes. Doug Martin also on there with the 23 points. Would have liked to see a touchdown in there. I'm sure the owners would like to see.
That would have been cool. He almost had one, but
it's tough to beg. And then, of course, Thomas Rawls with just a monster 36 points. If you had him in PPR, a couple extra with the 3 grabs. Honorable mentions, we got Jameis Winston there with the 5 touchdown passes also. He obviously would have been up there if it wouldn't have been for what Newton did. DeAndre Hopkins also up there with an honorable mention. And also Kyle Rudolph, kind of a...
Oh, that's right. He did kind of mess with the Packers a little bit.
He had that long touchdown in the first drive for Minnesota, or second drive, one of the two.
That is a stud I've forgotten about.
Yeah, and that's why I threw him in there. One of his best games of the year for sure.
Even in the loss.
Yeah, dud number 1, of course, Amari Cooper with 4 targets and only 1 catch for 4 yards.
Not good for the
0 points for fantasy owners this week. That's tough to swallow. Chris Ivory also, you mentioned it, 8 carries, 36 yards. Just 3 points for Ivory. For Fitzpatrick threw it 39 times in that game, which had something to do with it.
You never want Ryan Fitzpatrick to throw the ball that many times.
No, because nothing good's ever going to happen.
He's not terrible, but he should not be asked to throw the ball 40 times.
And Ivory owners have got to be a little upset. Obviously, a great start to the season for Ivory.
But not lately.
Averaged under 45 yards per game on the ground in the last 5 games. Under 45 yards is rough. And Bilal Powell is back and taking over the 3rd down role. So if the Jets do fall behind, which they've been doing a lot of lately, Ivory doesn't see the field as much.
Yeah, for sure.
And Derek Carr, you had to have expected big game against the Lions' bad defense. 6 fantasy points for Carr. I believe he's projected over 20, most likely.
Well, he didn't get that, obviously.
Tough to swallow. And our not-so honorable mentions for the week. Phillip Rivers had an ugly performance.
That's not so much on him, honestly. I don't really think.
I mean, yeah, but it's still... We already had our moment of silence for Phillip Rivers.
We did, and now we can criticize the fact that he managed to get 3 points.
Right. Lamar Miller, just 5 points for Miami. And we never talked about the Dolphins, but they had another poor loss.
I think it's safe to say that Dan Campbell honeymoon phase is over.
It's over. And Jimmy Graham, the last not-so-honorable mention, with just 3 catches and just 3 fantasy points. I told people you never draft the top tight end early unless his name is Rob Gronkowski. If you spent a 2nd-round pick on Jimmy Graham, sorry, but I told you so.
Yeah, I think he could have been on that not-so-honorable mention or just the straight-out duds list a lot of times this season in a very kind of bizarrely disappointing first season in Seattle after the trade. So, moving on from fantasy to the reality of the playoff picture.
We should also mention that, we don't have...
no power rankings for
this week.
We're doing the show a little early, so there isn't any, but we do have playoff picture to close out the show. Things are rounding into form 10 weeks in. Everybody's now had their bye week. So everybody's got 6 games to go, and this is the stretch run. Here we go. In the AFC... Patriots the number 1 seed at 10-0, undefeated. The Bengals are still the 2nd seed. They have that tiebreaker over the Broncos, who are also 8-2. That would be the 3rd seed. In the 4th spot is the Indianapolis Colts, who are winning that really, really bad AFC South. And they would right now be matched up against the Steelers, who are kind of turning the Jets on a little bit.
That'd be an interesting game.
That would be an interesting game. And then the Chiefs have snuck into that last playoff spot in the AFC over a couple other 5-5 teams like the Texans, Bills, and Jets.
That'd be funny if the Broncos and Colts played today without Manning or Luck. That'd be interesting.
Not exactly what you would have expected, but those teams still in the playoff picture anyways. On the NFC side, Panthers are the number 1 seed. The Cardinals are number 2 at 8-2. And then my Green Bay Packers are the 3rd seed, which would play your Falcons right now, as things would set up, who are the 6th seed.
Oh, I really hope that doesn't happen.
It may not materialize that way, but the Giants are in that NFC East, which is the NFC equivalent of the AFC South, meaning that I don't think a team will even need to be above 500 to win it. And they would be getting the Vikings right now, who suffered a setback but are still 7-3, 2 games better than the team they'd be going to play. And right behind them in the NFC, just to kind of right behind the Falcons, chasing the Falcons, Buccaneers and Seahawks are both 5-5.
I think we talked about. I mean, we don't really expect a lot from Tampa Bay, but Seattle again, they're still.
I don't know. Tampa Bay, honestly, they're playing much better. Okay, you're giving me that look, but so I don't think they're going to make it instead of Seattle, but they are playing really quite well, and I would expect that they might get to be 500 this year. Believe it or not, this Buccaneers team, all of a sudden. I was convinced with what I saw from the Eagles. Are they going to do it consistently? Maybe not, but man, we
see these fading teams: the Rams, Eagles, Saints, Bears. I mean, the Bears have had a strong comeback, but those first 3 I mentioned all fading. Falcons fading. The Seahawks trending a little bit up, and the Giants trending a little bit down. And that NFC East is poor. But I do think the Giants are a decent team that if they get hot at the right time, like they've done in years prior with Eli Manning.
It's every 4 years, so this is the year the Giants are going back to the Super Bowl.
Wow, I mean, it would have been nice to have Victor Cruz on the field with Odell Beckham Jr. We have to wait another year to see that
never
happen.
Materialized. But, so, I think that you're kind of talking about trending up versus trending down, and that's really, you can look at that right now and say, obviously Falcons trending down in the NFC. We suggested that the Seahawks are they can't seem to string together wins, but the Buccaneers can. And if you want to go AFC teams trending up or down, the Texans are certainly on the upswing, as are the Jaguars. We haven't mentioned them yet.
Right,
but
you said you wanted to sneak them in the show. Well, here you go.
I'm sneaking them into the show because they're all of a sudden 4-6. I don't think when was the last time the Jaguars won 4 games? Was Maurice Jones-Drew on the team probably back then?
Probably,
in his prime? It's been 3-4 straight years of being like the 3rd or 2nd overall pick. But all of a sudden, they're 4-6. They have an offense that's got some guys that can make plays, and Blake Bortles is at the lead of the helm of it. They're not even out of the AFC South picture, honestly. They might get some wins. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they're trending upwards a little bit. The Dolphins
also,
obviously going down.
Side bit on the Jaguars, since you wanted to talk about them so much.
Yeah, go Jags.
Great year for Telvin Smith for Jacksonville. The second-year linebacker, 97 tackles, which is 3rd in the league for Telvin Smith. Great player for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's, 97 tackles, half a sack, forced fumble, and an interception. He's been the leader of that defense, taking over from Posluszny for the most part.
You would be the guy that would bring up the random defender on the...
How is that random?
On the Jaguars. Not necessarily random, but just bring up a guy on defense. So there's a lot of these 4-6 teams, and I think I counted 8 of them between the AFC and NFC. Mostly NFC, I think 5 as opposed to 3. All those teams, you figure, okay, maybe they can string together if they got randomly hot all of a sudden. But other than that, probably not going to make the playoffs. So I think in 5-5 and up are really what you're looking at, meaning that we could see any number of these combination of teams in the AFC with those that pick one of those 5-5 teams that are 4 of them. Whether you think Chiefs, Texans, Bills, Jets. The Jets obviously not looking so hot, and the Chiefs really are, but it could go any one of those ways. For that last AFC wild card.
So since there is no power rankings this week, I was thinking we could close the show with our top 5 power rankings if we could put them together real quick for the viewers, because I think they're going to miss it if we don't include something.
Okay, so I think you'd have to include those undefeated teams, and I will put the Patriots first.
I will too, so let's put that there.
And the Panthers are going to be second.
Cardinals have to be 3.
I would totally agree with. Wow, this is a little more unanimous than I expected it to be. All right,
well, that's fine.
But would you say that there's a couple other 8-2 teams, Bengals or Broncos? I'm not really sold maybe on either of those teams. Although if I had to pick one, the unsettled quarterback situation of Denver worries me, but the defense is so good that it may not all that much matter.
I would go Bengals 4, Packers 5. I would leave the Broncos out of that top 5 right
Well,
now.
see, the thing is, it'd be hard for me to do that considering that and how much head-to-head factors into this. Yeah, but the Broncos whooped the Packers not 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so
but I think both of those teams are vastly different just that week ago. I mean, Brock Osweiler's now his quarterback.
because the difference from Manning's last great game to perhaps
Right, and now the Packers
done or
finally
something.
have some confidence again.
They do, but in between that time, since losing to the Broncos, they even lost 2 more games. So I guess it's hard to say. I don't want to be the Packers homer that puts them in the top 5 if they don't necessarily deserve it and would be leapfrogging a team that beat the crap out of them not just 3 weeks ago. But yeah, I think you got to look at it's a top-heavy league. We've been saying it all season.
Yep.
Those 2 undefeated teams, who knows when they're going to lose? The Panthers playing on Thanksgiving. Oh, that's right. As we kind of wrap up the show here, Thanksgiving is 2 days away.
One of the best football
It's going to be amazing.
atmospheres.
Not exactly great games, but I think there is some intrigue that the Lions are playing a little bit better as of late, and the Eagles are kind of fading down to that level. So that could just be a fun game because there's offense, maybe.
Yeah.
The Cowboys and the return of Romo, which we didn't talk about, but Romo came back and looked good against the Dolphins on the road, which is giving apparently Las Vegas sportsbooks a reason to put them as the favorite over the Panthers for some odd reason. Literally,
That is literally a
right
joke.
now. The Cowboys are considered the favorite, and the Panthers are dogs at 10-0.
That is flat out disrespectful.
Going to play
and I don't
3-7.
And I don't want the Panthers to win any games, but that is disrespectful.
That seems very disrespectful to me. And then, like we said, hinted at it before, Packers versus Bears Thursday night. Brett Favre's retirement jersey ceremony.
That's going to be a wonderful
It's
moment.
going to be nuts.
As a Brett Favre, he was my favorite player growing up, and
Well, I
still
don't think it
will
got any
be
better than
my
Brett Favre.
favorite player, probably for all time. That's going to be a great moment, and I better hear no boos from that stadium because he doesn't deserve them.
There should be no booze. I think all has been forgiven
The
at this
greatest Packers quarterback of all time. Yes, I said it. It's bold. I said it.
Well, one of the other great ones is either going to be one of the great ones is going to be playing in Rodgers, and there's rumors of Bart Starr. I mean, like he was supposed to. We'll see if he manages to make an appearance. His
That
health,
would be
obviously not
great.
but that would be really cool to see Starr, Favre, and Rodgers
in the
all
same
out
stadium.
there.
That'd be impressive.
That would be pretty legit, and I think Rodgers tends to play well against the Bears, and Cutler tends to not play so well.
Every NFC North quarterback plays bad against the Packers, so.
Well, I guess we will see what exactly is to be made of that. But the Packers looking to kind of string together some wins in short succession, and if they can do it, the emotional impact will certainly be there to push them over the top if they need any more reason to beat the Bears.
It'll be interesting if Forte and Jeffrey play in this game. I think they both probably will, just because it's a big game and they didn't play the week prior to rest them for this game. Not that it matters all that much. Bears playing better, but obviously I don't give them much of a chance.
Better, they almost had it against the Broncos, but couldn't manage to find the win late. But at any rate, that is the show for this week. We've got Thanksgiving, like we said, that's going to be a lot of fun. Watch football, eat turkey, do your thing. A happy Thanksgiving to everybody from students of the game. We will see you back here after this Week 12. The stretch run is on. It's going to be almost December by the time this next week is over. So the playoff push is here. Justin's already talking about the draft.
I'm very excited. I'm so excited for the playoff push, guys. Thanksgiving coming up. I hope you guys all have a relaxing week to spend with your family and to be thankful for all the things we have, including
Watch sports.
football. And watch football all week, just all day. Just all day. And if there's college football or college basketball or something, just watch it.
Or the
Enjoy
NBA.
The time. Don't watch the NBA.
Okay,
I don't
watch
endorse
the
that.
NBA.
But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in to Students of the Game Week 11. We will be back at the same time next week. Don't forget about us, and have a happy Thanksgiving one more time. God bless you all. Good night.